You're listening to the Bleach Brothers podcast, hosted by B-Word and Jake.
Welcome into the Bleach Brothers podcast. I am Jake the hater, whatever you want to call me. B-Word, how you doing?
Good, and I am just B-Word.
B-Word, that's right. Yeah. Dude, took a little break, and now we're back with a new song. I want to thank our friends Wyatt and the Ashes, old friends from high school out of Pahrump, Nevada. They just came out with their EP, and were gracious enough to let us have a song for our intro of the show. So, change it up a bit.
Yeah, the song's called Macaw. I would encourage anybody who's listening to check them out on iTunes or Spotify. We actually purchased this track right off of iTunes and edited it to be our intro and our outro for this episode. And really what we're going to do is just kind of alternate between our regular ones and this one because we want to shout out some good friends.
Yeah, this is their latest EP, Last Ride of the Deviled Bastard Sons, Part 1. So I guess they're going to come out with another one. Really good track. I think it fits us. I like that psychedelic ghost rockabilly punk, I guess they call themselves. Sort of like, you ever heard of the band Tiger Army, B-Word?
No, I have not, man.
Big fan of that band. So, I mean, you should also check that out. But no, that's
they're
what they
on the
remind me
Hi-Ya
of. Channel
on Sling.
They are not. You know what was on today, though? Seriously? My favorite movie on the Hi-Ya channel, Skinny Tiger, Fatty Dragon.
well, let's get off of this weird stuff here, and I just so we took a week off, right? You said that in the beginning, and really
for America,
for America, it was Bald Eagle Freedom Party, and while we were off, we didn't record, but you and I were able to touch base quite a bit, and also get some business details done that we needed to get done behind the scenes. But how was it, man? Did you enjoy your week off?
I enjoyed my fourth. We had actually a low-key, though, little man, Steele, our son. He's about 8 months old. He's sick, so he was actually sick on 4th of July. But luckily, being a baby, he can just lay around, so it gives you an excuse to be inside. They made fireworks illegal where I am because it's really dry, and we have a lot of wooded areas, and we've had huge forest fires up here in the past few years.
Right.
So that was actually sort of a little welcome for the dogs and everything. And then my neighborhood did like a big block party. So me and the wife took turns walking around with our second child, Adeline, and taking her to like the bouncy houses, and they had food trucks, and my neighborhood went all out. I just moved in this new house. And then my neighbor invited us over so I could kick his ass in cornhole. And that was fun. He finally, I think, just called it quits because he said it was too hot. But I think it was because I beat Dan the Man, as he calls himself, Olofsson. If you're listening, yeah, dude, you get better at cornhole.
Hey, Dan the Man, I haven't even met you, but what I will tell you is that Jake doesn't like to lose. And so if you can get better at cornhole, please get better at cornhole, because the moment this guy loses, it's just amazing.
You know what he called me? A sore winner.
Yeah, I can see that. that.
Because there was a moment where I was sitting there and Adeline was gathering the bags for us. They have a little pool in the back, and she was running getting them. And all of a sudden, I go, Adeline, your dad's winning. What do you think? And she goes, of course you are. And then Dan just goes, Adeline, your dad's a sore winner. Anyways,
that's funny. That's funny.
How was yours, bro?
It was great, man. So I ended up working up until Thursday last week, and then took the long weekend and went camping. I didn't have any cell phone reception. It was amazing. So I live in northern Nevada. We ended up going to one of the mountain lakes that we have here, and we went camping over in this little valley that we like to go camping in, me and several friends, and it was a good time, dude. It was a really good time. Word has it that if you ask Brian or the B-Word if he wants a shot, that he will just say yes. And I don't really remember that, candidly.
What were you shooting? I know it's
Crown
not guns.
Apple.
You were...
No,
okay,
it was
at
Crown
least you're not
Apple.
Are you a Fireball guy?
I'll drink Fireball, but it's not my thing. I much prefer a good whiskey than anything else. Actually, for shots, I like the flavored vodkas, but yeah. So it was Crown Apple, and my buddy Bob's wife Karen, she loves her Crown Apple. As a matter of fact, she made Crown Apple Jello shots, and so those were really good. But we ended up not allowing her to have any more Crown Apple, and she had a rather large bottle. So long story short, it was some good memories. It was pretty fun. Some memories I don't remember, and we got called out for it the next day after I started to try to repeat some conversations we had that night that I just didn't know that we had. So it was kind of interesting. But no, there were thunderstorms around us, which was kind of nice. But we also got some lake time, and it was pretty good, man. It was a well-deserved weekend, and of course the reason for it is Marca, right? So
Bald Eagle Freedom Party.
Yes, sir. So we had some good food, and we had some good times. And when we go camping, we actually plan out the menu pretty early, and then everybody brings a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and then we kind of know what we're going into for the weekend. So we had some burgers, we had some ribs, we had all that kind of stuff that you should have while you're camping. So it was pretty good.
Let me see. Did you grilled a lot? Are you a grill master, B-word?
You know what, man? I like my time on the grill, but I will never admit to being a grill master. I think that there's always room for improvement, especially with the grill. And when you're camping, it's primarily propane, and so that's what we were using was propane, and also, for fire danger and stuff, most everything was propane. Even our campfire was propane. So there wasn't much options when it came to grilling, but normally when I grill, I have a propane grill, so I like that. It's quick and easy. But as far as taste, I kind of prefer charcoal, dude. I really like charcoal. I like the taste of it. It's like getting a diesel going. You got to let it warm up for a little bit, and then once it's all warmed up, you're good to go.
All right, so let's. I'm excited for tonight's episode. We're going to talk about food, meat, grilling. Just the basic stuff that you do on holidays like this or the summertime, right?
Right.
Because like last summer, I don't know if you saw. I mean, you follow me on the socials, and I went on.
I actually
3-week...
just unfollowed you on all the socials.
That's fine. That's
but
fine.
I sent
that you know what?
Again. So when
that's
you
okay. I
accept
blocked
those, that'd
you.
be great.
So yeah, there you go. Cock blocked, bro.
I literally the amount of people that block me. I think I'm on a football team now. But anyway, go ahead.
So I went camping for like 3 weeks, and while I did it, I challenged myself as a chef.
Okay.
And because like you, I have a propane grill, and I'm gonna get into smoking versus grilling here in a second, but I enjoy a propane grill because you can control it a little more. There's a lot more you can do with it. I like charcoal, but the fear I have is who's mastering the grill. Because
right.
I feel like people put too much of the liquid on it to light it up, and it gets that flavor, and they don't let the coals go long enough. Because you see this at every party. The guy douses the charcoal so much, and then he throws it in to watch the giant thing fly up, and then the fire's going. He just starts throwing stuff on, and it's like no, you got to let that cook down for like an hour. I actually like cooking over actual natural wood fires because it's harder.
Oh, I do too. Yeah,
and I don't know. I'll post this photo this week, but I did a full 4-course dinner over a wood fire last year when we were on this camping. We were out in the middle of nowhere too. Yeah, I did a full spiral ham, like a whole ham, baked pot beans, braised cabbage. I did blueberry cobbler. I did everything on the fire pit.
Wow.
And it turned out, and I like I said, I challenged myself. There was another night where we deep fried chicken wings over a wood fire, which was a lot harder than I thought. Just stuff like that, because there's no, you're sort of just working with the element and having to raise and lower and, make sure you keep it hot but not too hot. And so I would say out of the two, and I'll ask you this, I'm more of a grill person than a smoke person.
I am more of a grill person.
Now, is that because of flavor, time, or method, or is there a reason for that for you?
I think for me it has to do more with time. When you're smoking something and you're doing it adequately, it's usually a full day event, or at least the majority of a day event, if not longer. And so for ease of use, I tend to be more of a grill person, whether it be charcoal or gas. It doesn't really matter. I mean, both of which taste good. And that doesn't mean that I don't like smoked meats. I do. I think that there are some good pieces of meat that can be smoked, like a smoked brisket or, some things like that would be really good. But to be honest with you, part of it is technique and talent. I just don't have that down. And the other part of it is the time.
Right. I think time's the biggest thing. For me, I'm not the biggest smoke flavor fan. I enjoy a little bit of it. I think it gets overdone, especially, you cook something on a smoker for, 8 to 16 hours or whatever you're doing. depending on, and we can go down, are you doing, a vertical or a horizontal smoke or a cold smoke, a hot smoke? I mean, there's all these methods, B-word. I mean, we can get into those. But you envelop it in smoke for 8 to 16 hours, let's say. Essentially, yeah, you'll still taste the meat, and if you honor the pig or the beef or whatever you're cooking, you'll get that flavor will come through. But to me, I usually just taste a lot of smoke. That it's almost that fact where it almost gives me a headache to be not to try to sound like a baby. But the other problem is I think it's because where I live, my family's originally from the South, and I think that's essentially where this is king, this style of food. And up here, nobody knows how to really do it. Barbecue up here is a shameful show and I mean, I don't even care if people are listening and have a barbecue joint. Nobody really does it right up here. There's a few places I've had a few items that are decent, but essentially they think they can all just throw something in for a long time, have some smoke around it, and still cook it hot, and it's good, and then just slather it in barbecue sauce. And that really bothers me. The other thing that bothers me is people buy smokers, right? Right. And you've seen this, friend. They go get the Traeger or whatever they're getting, and they essentially still try to grill food. Because the difference, right. B-word, as you're saying, is it's time, right? And so you got to do it low and slow and take the time. And I mean, the best smokers are doing it like, you're waking up at 4 a.m, you're throwing it on, and then all your friends come over and you can eat by noon, right?
Right.
Whatever you're doing it for, tailgate. So I'm a griller for that reason, because you can manipulate it more. You don't have to wait on it. But there's a lot of tools, and I mean, I'll tell you about some of these that I think, and tricks to get around this. Like, you can build a smoker in your oven if you really wanted to.
Right, you can.
And still, yeah. And I'm
I've
sure
actually seen them in filing cabinets and washing machines. I mean, it's crazy how you could put a smoker in different things.
Yeah, but I bought this little chef's tool called a smoking gun, and I like it because it has a hose. You can put it inside stuff. I'll actually do smoked soup sometimes, where I'll dip the hose into the soup and turn the smoke on and let it go through there, like smoked cauliflower soup. I did that on a menu once. Okay. But I will typically do things like smoke the butter or the salt, the seasonings I'm going to use, so you don't overpower it with that smoke flavor, but you still get that enhancement.
Okay.
And I think that's sometimes a better method. I mean, unless you're preserving something like smoked salmon, which is an amazing dish, I just think it's a little overdone. I don't think it's done very well. It's done very right. And I'm not saying I'm the best person at smoking things either. I mean, I've done cold smoked turkey before over ice and in restaurants and stuff, but it's just not my favorite method. And I think if it would come down to it, I'd be more of a grilling guy. Now, you said you're propane. Is that also due to technique or time or cost?
Definitely time. Definitely time. If time wasn't an issue, I'd be more of a charcoal guy. Okay. But a lot of times, if you're going to put a burger on a grill, or you're going to put whatever on a grill, chicken breast, whatever it is, you light up the propane grill and it's quick. It's done. You just cook it.
Now, when we're talking about this, and you're saying, you're propane because of time, do you feel like people have that hipster mentality of like, oh, it's propane, so it's not as, you get what I'm saying? Like how, I don't know, I have those friends that are chefy, and they, they'll poo poo on everything.
They try to be foodies.
Yeah, like they're not like my brother's not this way, although he claims he's the grill master and taught me the best beer can chicken, or right. What does he call it? Beer butt chicken? I don't know what he calls it, but something like that. And he's all only charcoal. Loves charcoal. You have to do everything on charcoal. And I think there's a time and a place. I don't know. I think convenience. I'm more propane, and I'm a Hank Hill fan. So
propane and propane accessories.
I want to damn it, Bobby. You got to get propane. No, I don't. I. And here's the thing. I want a smoker. I'm gonna buy one. I'm gonna do it. It's an investment, but I look every time I buy a piece of kitchen equipment, I look at it and go, how much am I actually gonna use this? Because there's so much crap out there, dude. There's so much crap out there that you don't need, and you can still get done. That's what I'm saying. Like I bought that smoking gun, and it does just enough for me. I'll build little foil packets with wood and light them on fire and put them in the oven and smoke around that.
See, that's another thing though too, because they do sell the little wood chips that you can put in a propane grill that gives it the flavor.
Yeah.
or lava rocks or whatever you want to put actually in the grill. I think that I don't want to say technology, but there's just some different things that different techniques, if you will, where you can still get somewhat of a smoky flavor or somewhat of a charcoaly flavor, even with a propane grill. But to be honest with you, man, I'm not that fancy.
Now, have you, if we go to grilling, have you had hardwood grilled food compared to charcoal?
No, I have not.
So that's my favorite because we grew up in Pahrump, Nevada, and we have mesquite trees everywhere, and mesquite is known as a good smoking wood for Texas barbecue, stuff like that. So we used to go out and we'd cut off a lot of dry limbs, right? And I will tell you, there is nothing better than lighting that up, almost like charcoal, and letting that smoke and grill. So it's like you almost get the best of both worlds. And you do it at higher heat. You do it fast, but you also have some coals at the bottom, and then you let the newer branches you throw on as you're throwing the meat on, and you just have to control the indirect and direct heat, and by that, you're moving stuff to the side or whatnot.
Right.
And I'm not trying to make this super layman's terms, but for some people that don't know, when you have your grill, you should get some hot coals and then move them to a side and have a cold side of the grill essentially, and that's what the lid's for and the vents and I think that's another thing. A lot of people lose technique. They just think you light fire, you throw meat on, and you're done. And there's more of an art to it.
Well, and the worst part is when people don't let the meat rest. I mean, some people just take the meat off the grill and instantly cut into it. And I think that's like one of the worst things you can do with a piece of meat.
Yeah, you always let meat rest. I'm somebody that will let it rest. I think I do the midpoint. I don't do the 10 minutes sometimes they'll suggest, because I like my food hot.
Right.
I don't like to eat a lot of cold food. I'm a simple man. I think food is hot, drinks are cold, and dessert is in between. And that's how I've always lived my life. I love iced coffee. I don't I'm not a big fan of hot coffee. If it is, I wait till it gets lukewarm. If I have cold food, I like it to be up to more room temperature.
Wait, pause. You don't drink hot coffee?
I'll drink it. I just would rather prefer cold coffee or lukewarm coffee.
Okay,
Drinks
now
are
we
cold.
know why you're not growing a beard. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Proceed.
That's okay. Well, dude, that's why I only have 3 chest hairs. I mean, if you can count them, you shave them off, right?
You have the exact amount of chest hairs as you do nipples. I'm actually very fascinated by that.
That's where they all are, too. No, but I mean, there's so, okay, for grilling, B-word, what's your favorite meat to grill?
Oh, favorite meat to grill? Oh, probably a ribeye.
Oh, just a whole ribeye or a ribeye
Just
steak?
a whole ribeye steak. Definitely
Ribeye
a ribeye steak. Yeah, I think that the marbling of the ribeye is really good. The taste of it's really good. The fattiness of it just makes it taste so good. It's a tasteful meat. And I guess by tasteful I mean it's just flavorful. And it's really easy to cook more or less on a grill. But yeah, I mean that would probably be my favorite piece of meat. That or just a barbecue chicken wings.
Okay. I'm not okay, so when you do barbecue chicken wings, are you talking like the actual drum or the mini little wings? Like the wing wings?
No. I'm talking actually the wings.
Okay. I am not if I get wings, I like hot wings. I'm a traditionalist. I like barbecue chicken, but I like thigh meat. Just like my women, I like the thighs. Breasts on a grill is stupid. You just don't do it. It's going to dry it out. It's not the type of cut you do. You either do a whole chicken with skin on or you just don't even bother.
Yep.
I am not I'll put steaks on the grill depending on my situation. But you know me, I'm the king of cast iron.
Yeah.
I think the best cooked steak is in a cast iron skillet.
You are correct with the cast iron, but I have to be honest with you. You're the chef, and I'm the guy who tries to rein the chef in. So,
Yeah.
So the cast iron, I love cast iron skillets and cast iron cooking material, but what I am not very specialized with it. I know how to season it, I know how to clean them, and that's really it. But when it comes to wheeling and dealing with them, I'm pretty simple.
Yeah, see, like I think the biggest thing if we would talk about smokers that I like is I like a smoked ribeye, but I reverse sear it.
Yeah, okay.
So, you're essentially going to smoke the thing all day or however long, and then you're going to take it off, and then you're just going to sear it really fast in a cast iron pan with some garlic, some butter, S&P, and maybe a few herbs. I like to always have thyme and rosemary They're always in my arsenal in my bag. My favorite herb is tarragon. I like to throw it in. It gives a little bit of licoricey like flavor, so it's a different
Okay.
profile. But I'll usually do that, baste it a little bit, and take it out. Reverse searing is a method I learned when I was a chef at one of the big steakhouses up here, Ringside. We sous vide steaks, and then we would sear them to order because you can hold them all day. And so smoking sort of the same thing. If you keep that temperature low enough, you can get that smoke flavor and leave it on all day. And I think that's the benefit to it. But if I'm going to grill, I'm a pork guy all the way. I'm a pig guy. I will eat anything on a pig. I think you can grill anything on a pig. I'll do whole pigs. I think it's the best animal around. But if I was going to go with the steak, I don't know if you know of this one, and you picked a ribeye, and that's a perfect steak because that is fat is flavor, as we say, right? Mm-hmm. Is a culotte steak.
I have never heard of that.
So that's a chef cut, and it's where the sirloin on the cow is.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the tip of that. It's a very tender, like perfect cut. A lot of places might do like steak bites or anything if you're getting that at for happy hour or whatever. But imagine a steak bite as a whole steak, like a big, juicy, amazing cut.
Okay.
And I love to have that cut. Now, the reason most people haven't heard of it is, as I said, it's a chef's cut, so they don't really give that out. It's either used as a byproduct for something else, or the chefs hang on to it themselves and they cook it. So, I mean, if I'm going to cook I guess if I did top 3 steaks, I would do a culotte, a hanger, and and then the ribeye. The ribeye is, for a standard cut, is my favorite steak.
So I've heard of a hanger, but
Okay.
how do you pronounce the other steak? Is it culotte?
Culotte.
How do you spell that?
So culotte is spelled Coulotte. If you actually, and I do say this, and I learned this from Alton Brown, the great guy on Food Network, a long time ago when I was starting my chef journey, is meet your butcher. Get somebody that you can trust. Like if you have your regular market that you get to know, like I have a safe, and you can do it anywhere. I have a Safeway that I go to that I buy primarily beef fat because I do my own burger grinds, and they sell it to me for 20 cents a pound. And I just call them ahead of time, and they'll save me 10 pounds at a time, and I'll go pick it up. And that's because I got to know them. If you get to know people like this and you go to stores and stuff, you can ask for these cuts, and they'll usually do it for you. They'll do almost anything you need them to. I used to have a fishmonger who would save me fish heads and eyes and all that for stuff that I would do, stews. So that is an important thing, especially because you can go in and there's certain steaks like a 7-blade steak or a hanger steak, or my favorite bacon to cook with is European rasher bacon because it makes for the best BLT because it gives you full bread coverage.
Okay.
And so these are things, and then also because these are more versatile meats, especially for the grill. You put European bacon on a grill, it's not going to fall through the slats. It's going to take a little bit longer to cook. It's almost like cooking a ham steak, just a little thinner that's cured. So another great move. Now,
Interesting.
Speaking of barbecue, B-word, have you been out to barbecue a lot in your life?
Oh yeah.
What can you describe your best experience to me and why?
Yeah. So diehard Cowboys fan here, right?
Boo.
Went to I'm not looking for your opinions here there, Madosic. This is where it's at, okay? So I went to this place in Arlington, Texas. It was the night before a Cowboys game. I went with a couple friends, and we ended up going to this place called Fork in the Road. And first off, it was a little hard to get in the night before a game, but we were able to do it. I think there was like a 45 or an hour minute wait. And so we sat around. They actually allowed us in, had a few drinks, which was really nice, and then got us over to our table. But the aroma of the restaurant was just phenomenal. They actually did a few different things. So they had smoked meats, they had grilled meats, all that sort of stuff. Okay. But again, me being the simple guy that I am, I ordered a ribeye, and it was pleasurable, man. It was really, really good. The flavoring was good, and there's a lot of arguments. Do you put A1 on a steak? Do you put Heinz 57 on a steak? Do you put the house barbecue sauce on a steak? For me, and you're the chef, you can tell me if you think differently, but for me, a good steak is just a little bit of salt and pepper and you're good to go. And that to me told me that they had a good steak. Their ribeye was huge. I think it was like 18 or 20 ounces or something like that. It was a monster. I felt like John Candy from The Great Outdoors trying to finish that thing, but it was phenomenal, dude.
Was it bone in or
Yeah,
like a tomahawk almost? Okay.
yeah, it was.
Nice. Yeah. And so was it like an open pit barbecue joint, or was this like closed, or
It was a
was
closed
this
kitchen, so I
okay?
wasn't able to see what their cooking setup was. But yeah,
Gotcha.
it was really nice.
That's more comfortable too. I'm sorry. I don't know if you've been to a lot of open pit houses, and they're fun and they're great, and they always make great food and stuff, and they serve it almost like cafeteria style, where Texas barbecue is served by the pound typically, right? Where you just get it on a platter, and that actually started because there's four kinds of Texas barbecue. I don't know. There's four types of barbecue in America. Okay.
Okay.
So we have Carolina,
Right.
Memphis, Kansas City, and Texas, the big players. And I mean, I'm not saying there's not barbecue elsewhere, and there's Korean and stuff, but let's just talk about the four major players.
So you don't
and how
have
this started.
Pacific Northwest barbecue?
No, they try and they fail. If you ask, and I have a story about this. I actually did a food anthropology course, right? And I read this great book, and it was called Food of a Younger Nation. I would highly recommend it. Great read. Talks about something that I brought up in class, and this is why this book was given to me from a chef professor. I said, my problem is you go to like the South and you ask like what the cuisine is, and they'll say, or you go to Texas, you ask what kind of barbecue is, and they'll say there's East or Central or West or South, and we're going to get into those in a second. But I said the problem I have is you come up here and you go, what's the cuisine up here? And people just go salmon. And there's really no distinction. I mean, it's a lot of borrowed, like most cuisines. Like, there's a lot of Asian influence, and there's California
Sure.
influence, and
Sure.
and the rule of thumb is what grows together goes together. So as a chef, if it grows out here, you use it. The problem is that there's not really like a staple that we have besides the fish, salmon.
Right.
And after doing some research, there's a big reason for that. Most of the food that they were eating, you can't eat anymore due to endangered species, stuff like that. Like beaver tail was a huge delicacy back then.
Oh, really?
And you don't see, yeah. And the problem is, just like smoking, it takes like 16 hours to cook because you got to cook all those layers off, and all the fat and the blubber. And people aren't hunting beavers all day. Another big one was cougar meat. But I think the most interesting dish I found is they used to drink milk-o-lean.
They used to drink what?
Milk-o-lean, and it was half kerosene, half milk.
Well, that explains
And
a lot.
apparently, yeah, they would get hammered and keep them warm, and they would also die sometimes. So,
Yeah.
No, highly suggest that book if you haven't. B-Word, I'll loan you my copy to check out. I know you like to read like I do, but back to barbecue. So Texas has, as I said, East, Central, West, and South, which is easy because it's just the quadrants, right?
Right.
And so I'm
Except for
guessing
North. They don't have North.
no, but I mean you got to look at Central is probably going to be more like that, and then you're getting into Oklahoma, and that's red bean territory, all that. So East is considered slow cook, fall off the bone, and it's not my favorite kind because fall off the bone, I think is a misconception. And you have this friend, you go over to their house, and they're like, oh, I made ribs. They're so tender, they fall off the bone. You don't want a rib to fall off the bone. You need to have some pull, right?
Sure, yeah.
But they do hickory woods, sweet tomato sauces, and they chop it. They don't slice it. So they just dice up, it falls off the bone, then they chop the hell out of it and put it on a platter. The next one is Central, which is probably my favorite. I'm going to guess it's yours, and you tell me after I get through this.
Okay.
But it's essentially just you rub it in salt and pepper. You do it on indirect heat with like usually pecan or mesquite wood or oak. And you serve it without sauce, but you can have it on the side if they want it, just like you were talking about with the steak sauce, right? And this was also, they would cook it in butcher paper. And this was this was a butcher paper. So when like you see them, they'll wrap it in that like brown paper or white paper. They'll throw it on the smoker and pull it out. Mm-hmm. This was actually a German influence from delis, and probably some other cultures too. But German was a big one because the sausages and stuff. They would wrap the meats in the butcher paper, cook them, and then just sell them like a meat counter. Okay. And so they would do it by the pound. So and it's very simple. The salt and pepper, S&P. Why mess it up? And then, if you go to West, that's considered cowboy style, which is actually over mesquite wood again. but it's over direct heat, so it's hotter. So you're essentially grilling and not smoking and cooking as long as the other two. And then south is going to take more influence from like Mexico, like barbacoa style. And barbacoa is essentially where you bury meat, and it's typically and you cook it underground. The difference is too, as we know, Texas barbecue is known for beef, right? And that's due to the nature of the land and stuff. Barbacoa is more with goats, lambs, and that. So that introduces that side.
Sure.
So I don't know if you knew a lot about this. You know, this is.
I actually didn't know. This is pretty interesting for me.
What style do you think, or I mean, just hearing that, what's probably your favorite that you know of or you think?
So I was listening to you talk about it, and the East sounded better in Texas, but then Central was a close number 2 there, because I think that so you said about the East, it's more of a direct grill, it's more of direct heat type of grilling, correct?
That's the West. So West is more direct heat. No, you're fine. You're fine.
So the West. So West was more along the lines of what I typically would order or typically expect for barbecue. Okay. But I like the simplicity of the Central Texas.
Yeah. See, in Central Texas is I think where brisket comes from. Which I have a chef friend, Aaron, who me and you have talked about him extensively about other things. But he's going to teach me his brisket recipe because I'm going to teach him my pulled pork. Because he's not a big pulled pork guy. He doesn't cook. And it's just, you know, when you hear chefs, it's funny when you hear like, oh, I'm not good at this. And people just think, oh, you're not good at that. It's food. And it's like, yeah, but there's styles and all that. And so like, he's going to teach me brisket because I actually don't really enjoy eating brisket all that much.
Really?
No, I'm a beef guy, but I'm very particular. I'd rather have a cow's tongue in tacos, and I'd rather have, you know, a steak. And that's about it. And then I like raw beef.
I love lengua tacos.
Right.
So lengua's cow tongue, and they're phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Real quick story on that. So my mom's mom was not necessarily a vegetarian or a vegan, but it just wasn't in the household. There wasn't meat in the household, hardly ever. And my mom came home from school. I've been told this story like a million times. My mom came home from school, and the house smells just of like barbecued meat. And so they sit down for dinner, and it's my mom and her 2 sisters and her brother and my grandpa and grandma, and they're all sitting at the dinner table, and they start serving this meat that smells so good. And so my mom, the oldest, reaches in and scoops out some of the meat and puts it on her plate, and my aunt, the second oldest, is sitting right across from her at the table. And so they're talking about this meat and whatever, and my mom puts a little bit of the meat in her mouth, and right about that time, my sister goes, "Mary's Frenching a cow. Mary's Frenching a cow." And so my mom will not touch lengua to save her life anymore. She was mortified by that. But I was introduced to lengua when I was, probably 6 or 7. I mean, and I've loved it ever since. My daughter loves lengua tacos. I mean, it's the business. So
it's a great meat.
Yeah, it's really good. It's tender. I have to be honest though. So I'm also a fan of Basque food, and I like like the beef stew with the lengua in it. But I'm not a fan of just like a barbecued slab of tongue.
Oh, see, I think here's the thing. I wasn't until I had it done right. And I know people usually say that. And I mean, I have 2 tricks I do with people is when I have friends over, and they can hate me for this after, but I don't really care. Because right now I have about 6 tongues in my freezer, and I'm going to be cooking them soon, and my wife will have no idea. Because this is what I do. I cook food, right? And for a living. And I'll have people over, and I'll cook usually the whole dinner, and I'll feed them. And I don't tell people what it is half the time.
Right.
Because whoever you heard is allergic to beef. It's not right.
Hardly. Yeah. Never.
Yeah. So I just say it's beef, and I'll cook them tacos, right? So I'll make some lengua tacos, and they'll eat it, and they'll go, "Oh, that's good." And I mean, every now and then you get a person, "Oh, it's not my thing." Okay, that's fine. You know what I mean? But it's not, because if people come over and I do this, "Oh, I'm making beef tongue tacos tonight," people will cancel.
Right.
People will show up and go, "Oh, I don't want that," or "I'm picky," or "Oh, can I have just this and that?" But if I ever just put a big platter and it look, because you eat with your eyes too, and you've seen my photos of food, it'll look beautiful. They'll start
Right.
eating it. They'll go, wow. And then I'll usually tell them after they're done, after we're sitting around and maybe they've had a few drinks and everybody's full and they can't spit it out at me. And then I tell them, and I had one friend say this was rude, and I didn't care what they said because I thought it was stupid. But I don't, because it's like they're not going to eat it. If I tell them, half the time they're just going to, and like I said, you're not going to die from it. It's not poisonous. You're not allergic to it. So, if you're a vegan, then yeah, I'm going to tell you, hey, don't eat this. But essentially, I'll cook it, and going back to this, I grill my beef tongues, and I grill them for a while. I sear the hell out of the outside, then I let it cook low and slow for a long time. Peel it. I don't do the boiling, and then I braise it after that. But usually I'll take some slices, like you said. I'll season those up, and I'll serve that too. And so, like I said, I think sometimes it just matters how you have it and how somebody prepares it, and it can change it. Just like when you made me answer if I would eat fish semen. And I would. And I mean, but maybe I'd be surprised somewhere.
Right.
But
okay. So there's a lot of debate between Texas barbecue and Memphis barbecue, right?
Okay. Right.
So tell me what's the main differences between those?
So when we get into these regions, the few things you'll find is to sauce or not to sauce is one question. And the second question is, what animal are you using? So in Memphis, they're typically pork, but they're mainly only doing ribs and shoulders.
Okay.
So they're doing ribs and pulled pork, the two famous staples of barbecue. They're known for tomato-based barbecue sauces. And the reason I'm pointing it out, it's gonna make sense, because people, I think, just presume tomato or barbecue sauces are all the same, and that could be not farther from the truth. Okay, and I'm not just talking spicy or sweet. So their sauces are tangy, sweet. They put molasses and tomatoes in them, right?
Okay.
But they also will serve wet or dry ribs.
Okay.
And what that means, I don't know. Do you know what that means, B-word?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the audience, a wet rib is where you cook it and then you cover it and slather it in sauce and you serve it. A dry rib is where you put dry rub on it, you cook it, and you serve it without sauce. You can serve it on the side, and it's an option, but typically won't. And then they're known for barbecue sandwiches, so the pulled pork sandwiches, stuff like that.
Okay.
But that's the difference in Memphis. It's the tanginess and the sweetness. They do a lot more molasses, so you're going to have sweeter barbecue sauces. Okay. And you're going to be doing more pork, while Texas is going to be beef, and they're also going to do more dry rubs and more about, I will say, in my opinion, I think Texas honors the animal a little more than Memphis does, and don't hate me out there, people that listen. But I think Memphis it deals with two parts of the pig and a lot with the sauce, and then how they serve it. And I love Memphis barbecue. I love all kinds of barbecue for different reasons. But I think Texas has it right with the animal that they're using. I think they honor it more. If I could go to a restaurant, and I have a list of like dream restaurants I want to eat at in my life, right, B-word? And there is one in Memphis, and it's Germantown Commissary.
Okay.
And it used to be, I guess it was like a grocery store up until 1981, and the owner came in and he turned it into, a barbecue shack. And essentially it's like any other one. It's like you go up, you get a platter, you get it full, you get your white bread, you get your pickles, all the accompaniments of it, and you eat. But it's just one of those places I've always wanted to go to because I've heard wonderful things about it. I've always read about it, and I'd like to go there. So that's the difference of Memphis. Now, if we're going to go down to Kansas City, they deal with a bigger variety of meat. So they're going to be doing the lamb. They're going to be doing the beef. They're going to be doing the pork. The difference for them is all their meat is dry rubbed. All sauces are table side, but their sauces are thicker. So like, when you see those like KC Masterpiece sauces, and it's a really thick sauce. It's almost for dipping, and there's two reasons for that. The third part of Kansas City barbecue that's a staple is French fries.
Oh, really?
Everywhere you go, you get French fries. Well, you should get French fries with your barbecue. So you're gonna dip your fries in that thick barbecue sauce, and you're gonna dip your food in it, and that's why. Not my most favorite barbecue. Not that it doesn't have a place in the world, but out of all of them, my favorite is Carolina barbecue.
And so, what makes Carolina barbecue Carolina barbecue?
So Carolina barbecue is all about the whole pig, and as we know, as we've talked about, I'm a big fan of the whole pig. But there's 3 styles of Carolina barbecue, and it doesn't make sense on a map. Well, it sort of does, but it doesn't, because we have North and South Carolina, right?
Right.
But in the barbecue world, we have Western barbecue, Western Carolina, Eastern Carolina, and South Carolina. South Carolina barbecue is known for gold sauce.
And so that's more of the mustards.
Well, yes, yeah, but it also has a little bit of tomato in it. Okay. West barbecue style is, or sometimes it's called Lexington style, is ketchup or tomato, and they primarily only cook with the dark shoulder meat. That's it. That's their. And when I'm saying this to people, I'm not saying you can't go and get sausages and brisket. They're going to do that stuff, but that's what they're known for. East Carolina is known for the whole hog, and they do mops. And there's 2 reasons it's called a mop. Is you'll see those barbecuers, they actually take a mop and they wipe it with all the brine and everything, right, that they're using in the sauce.
Right.
But 2 is because you mop up everything. Like when you pull pork, you're supposed to have sauce in the bottom and everything. You cooked it in those juices, and it mops it up. But so just like the South Carolina, you were saying, the vinegar bases, they're known for their mustard and vinegar-based sauces. And East Carolina sauces have no tomatoes at all. And they're really thin, almost like watery sauces, because all they're meant to do is just flavor that meat and be super juicy. So when you see like a pulled pork sandwich and you're looking at it and you're like, no, there's no red on it, there's no color or anything, it's probably an East Carolina sauce that it still has all the flavor, but not all the sugar, and it hasn't been cooked down like that.
Oh, okay.
And that's my favorite style of barbecue. I'm a big fan of vinegar. I think if I ever listed my top ingredients in the world, number 1 is honey. Save the bees. They're important, but it's the most natural, pure food, right? Number 2 is mustard. Sure. Mustard is my favorite ingredient by far, and it's very heavy in Carolina sauces, I think, because it goes with everything. It goes with honey. It can be sweet. It can be hot. It can be cold. You know what I mean? Mustard has a lot of varieties.
Right.
There are some people say, and I could be wrong on this, and I'm going out on a limb here, but Lexington barbecue, they also say that they have to be mayonnaise-based, I think. And I've never heard of that. I mean, I've heard of white barbecue sauce. I don't know if you have.
I've not heard of white barbecue.
It's a mayonnaise-based sauce. I've never had it, and I'm not saying they're full of shit. I'm saying this could be a thing, but it's not prominent enough where I know a lot about it. But those are the four main styles, and that's what you're looking at. So
talk to me a little. Sorry. Talk to me a little bit about. So when you hear more about honey barbecue, right, or a sweet barbecue, is that regional? Or is that within all 4 quadrants?
I mean, it's more. I would say that's more towards your Memphis and Kansas City style.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, and I would finish that because my next question was going to be, and when you start talking about spicy barbecue, is that more of a quadrant as well?
So the sweet thing is more because you're using tomatoes and molasses and sugars to make these thicker sauces, right? So you got to cook them down and caramelize them, do stuff like that. So that's where you're going to get that. The spicy thing is essentially just going to be more preference of the chef and the dry rubs they're doing.
Okay.
I honestly, and I I'm not going to say I'm as versed on that part, because when I go out, I'm not the guy that picks up the spicy barbecue sauce. I know there's a thing for that, but if I'm going to eat something, I'm going to rather eat a Nashville chicken hot sandwich rather than a spicy barbecue pulled pork sandwich. It's just not my jam.
Sure.
But I would say I wouldn't say that the spicy thing's a quadrant thing. I think that's just if people like it
preference.
Now. Yeah. Now out of the places that do it, I would say probably Kansas City or Texas would have spicier stuff. And like I said, somebody can hate on me about that if I'm wrong. But from my experience and being traveling, I will say that's probably it. I mean, I think one of the best times I had in my life is when my brother-in-law Greg, who part of the party we're supposed to have with the steak where Aaron Yap owes us.
An honorary bleach bro.
Yes, an honorary bleach bro, because he still doesn't understand what it means. um, I went to his wedding in the Carolinas, and when we went over there, we went to a few barbecue spots, and I went to this one called Smoke, and I finally got to go to one of my dream restaurants, Five Church. It was a chef from Top Chef, and it was great. But Smoke was a good barbecue spot, but I mean, there was so much good barbecue there, and it was like you couldn't, just like when you went down to Texas, I'm sure you couldn't turn your head without seeing it, like almost like a Starbucks up here, right?
Right.
It's just everywhere.
Or a dentist office in Las Vegas, or a 7-Eleven in Las Vegas.
Yeah, let's go to Red Rock.
Yeah.
So knowing those four B-word, now you know a little more, what do you think is your preference go-to style of barbecue?
Okay, so I'm going to stick with quadrants as opposed to saying, taking out specific ones of each.
Yep.
I think my number one is probably Texas barbecue, with a very, very close runner-up as a Memphis barbecue. Okay. And the reason why I was going to go with Texas is because to me it is the simple way to do barbecue, and I don't like things very grandiose. I just like things very simple, and I'm not a huge fan of saucy. I like to taste the cut of the meat that's there, but Memphis does have the sauces that I'm looking for. It does have the flavorful, like like a pulled pork. You want to have a good sauce with a pulled pork. I understand, being able to taste the pork and all of that sort of stuff, but I do like a good sauce on a pulled pork or a sandwich of that kind. So yeah, Texas number one, Memphis number two, probably Carolina number three, and Kansas City number four.
Okay, I think we're close. I'm Carolina 1, Memphis 2, Texas 3, and Kansas City 4. And nothing against the Kansas City people. I love French fries. I like all that. It's just it's not my favorite. But I'll never forget when I first started learning how to cook Carolina barbecue. I was running a restaurant up here called Sharp, and we were doing a to-go menu, and I had a pulled pork sandwich on there, and I made an East Carolina sauce and a pulled pork sandwich. And the guy walked in, and he was from the Carolinas. He goes, "Is any maters in it?" And I'm not talking mater from the show Cars. And I just went, "No." And the sous chef goes, "I don't know what he's talking about." I was like, "There's no maters." He goes, "Are you sure?" And so I said, "Sir, you can." So I invited him back in the kitchen. And we had an open kitchen. He comes back there, and I gave him a piece of white bread, and he dipped it in my sauce. And he goes, "No maters." And he was so happy. And I gave it to him. And so for this episode, I'm actually going to give... one of my favorite things to make, and I'm actually going to post the video because I did this on TV a few years ago. But I'm going to give my dry rub pulled pork recipe with my Dr. Pepper barbecue sauce, and on top of it, I usually do an apple bacon coleslaw.
So okay, you're speaking my language here, because barbecue and coleslaw is my jam. There is nothing better than that. So lay it on me, man. What is this recipe?
So, for the dry rub, it's, you're essentially I'm not gonna go through every little part of it.
Sure.
We'll post this up, but you got, I dry rub my pork butt, brown sugar, chili powder, all those accompaniments, and then I let it sit in the fridge for a few hours, and so it starts to get that juice sort of out of it in the bottom, and you're gonna leave that. And you're gonna cover it actually with some Dr. Pepper to help break it down and give it some more sweetness, and then a lot of apple cider vinegar. And you're going to wrap this in foil. The nice thing is you can do this on the grill, you can do this in a smoker, or you can do it in the oven. And depending on that, I'll list like temperatures and times that you want for this.
Okay.
Cook this off, and you're just going to let this do for hours. And minimum, I'd say probably 4 hours. Maximum, you can, if you're smoking it, you're going to go up to almost 12 hours. You're going to pull that out. You're going to shred it. And then as you're doing that, you're going to take some of that pork juice that cooked off, and you're going to pour it into another side pan. You're going to take some more Dr. Pepper, some more of those dry rubs, some more apple cider vinegar, and you're going to reduce this down and make this Dr. Pepper barbecue sauce. The only other thing you'll add is some mustard. If you really want to, you can add or any type of ketchup. You can add some tomatoes to it. It's not going to hurt it, because we're not making a traditional sauce. This is a Dr. Pepper sauce. I always make it for parties because people like it. It's almost got the best of all worlds. It's a little bit spicy. It's tangy, vinegary, and it's got the sweetness, right?
Okay.
And so it's a sauce I came up with, and I mean, people make it. I'm not saying I invented this thing, but it's my recipe, and people have always enjoyed it. And then the final part is as this is cooking, you could do this pulled pork just by itself or on a sandwich. And I'm one of those people. I always put my coleslaw on my pulled pork sandwiches to cool it down.
Yes.
So my apple bacon coleslaw is like, your basic cabbage mix, and then I dice some like Granny Green Smith apples or a nice sweet apple, like a Pink
Oh,
Lady's,
wow.
another good one. And I add that to it, and it adds like another note and crispiness and cools it down even more. And then the bacon is just pork on pork action, which I know I've said on another episode, you don't want the same meat on meat action, but this is one of those things. I think if you just have it as a side to it, makes the kids eat it more. And there's nothing better than getting the kids to eat the vegetables.
That's
So
true.
I'll have those up. We'll have the video up for that, and I'll have all the breakdowns. And as I said, I'll do a breakdown where you can smoke it, grill it, even though I talk some smack on smoking tonight. But yeah, no, that's the recipe I'm going to give out. I hope people enjoy it. And B-Word, you should try it. I think you'll pull this one off. It's not an intimidating recipe, which is the best part.
I'll tell you what, man. I'm gonna go ahead and commit to trying that. But what we will do is we'll get those posted on all the socials, and then we'll also do a little bleach bit of this recipe for you, so that way it's after it's been published this weekend, we'll go ahead and do a re-release on this. On this recipe alone, so that way it's easier to follow too, so you don't have to try to look for timestamps or anything if you're listening to this episode.
That's perfect. No, I mean, now I'm getting hungry, of course, but
Well, so I have two more questions for you, my man.
Okay.
And they both involve the topic of the day. So your meal, if you wanted to pair a beer with it, what kind of beer are you going to pair with it?
ooh, for this type of meal, I'm gonna do a very light pilsner,
Okay.
because I want to taste the meat and all the flavors and not overpower this. Or I'm gonna go with a shandy because I think it's perfect for the summertime.
Okay.
I can't think of a top shandy because the problem I have, and I don't know if we can get into this for a second, B-Word, but shandies, are you somebody that buys like a name brand one, or if you go out and you see it, you might just try it?
No, I don't buy name brand shandies. I'll tell you what, though. We've talked about them before. Shoe Tree Brewing Company.
Okay.
They actually offer all of their beers as a shandy if you'd like them, because they brew their
Really?
own. They brew their own lemonade, and so they'll do half lemonade and half whatever the beer is that you want. So they've got some really good pilsners. They've got some really good. Some lighter IPAs that go very, very well with it, or a nice honey ale. So yeah, I more prefer a shandy that way. To be honest with you, I don't think I purchase a shandy hardly ever, because it does give that fruity taste to it. I feel like I'm drinking a Zima. You remember those from when we were kids?
Oh, dude, I remember Zimas.
But yeah, no, I do like shandies, but I'm not a huge shandy person. But I can definitely see how the shandy would pair well with a nice pulled pork.
Well, because I'm one of those people too. As we're sitting here thinking about it, I'm thinking I have a nice big table on my back porch that's covered, and it seats about 9. And I'm just thinking I'd be sitting out there in the sunshine, maybe sunset, bunch of people over, wanting to enjoy that. But see, you just opened my eyes up to something, because I know what a shandy is, right? Mm-hmm. But every time I've gone out, I've never had a place say, "Oh, do you want us to make that into a shandy?" It's just that's the shandy on menu.
God.
And that's why I've never had that experience, and that's amazing to me. I would love to see this brewery, Shoe Tree. I know you've shouted them out before.
It's my favorite one, and when I can get you down here, man, we'll have to go over there, because not only do they brew their own lemonade, they brew their own root beer too.
Ooh.
And so you are definitely not going wrong with anything on their menu. But yeah, my absolute favorite, I'm going to have to try to figure out how I can get a couple of these up to you. I'm not sure if they're in the Total Wines or the major retailers or not, but I'm going to get some up to you, man. I'll commit that to you.
Yeah, thanks. Because the beer and the only other thing I'll say is there was a beer I really wanted to say. But do you ever have those beers at a brewery you go to and they don't sell it? It's just you can only get it there. Mm-hmm. So there's I don't know if you're aware of Hub Brewery.
I'm not. No.
So Hub's big up here, and they have a few spots, but they do some really good, like the Abominable IPA. The nice thing is they have breweries all over town, and they do certain beers for certain locations too. So they have a VIPA, the Vipa as they call it, but it's a Vancouver. When I'm right on the border of Portland. Vancouver only IPA that you can only get at that one location, and I think that's cool. Well, they had a beer last year called the Ballad of Meyer Lemon.
Okay.
And it was a Meyer Lemon, almost like shandy sour, and it was one of those ones I just couldn't get enough of this beer.
Oh,
and so if I could pick any beer, this would have been the beer I'd pair with this meal. The problem is you can only get it there in a glass and a chalice, and you can't, they don't sell it in cans or anything. Even though they sell everything else in a damn can, can't get that one. But
Right.
I could get probably a growler, but I'm not a growler guy. Are you?
No.
I think they look cool.
Yeah.
And I have an
if I'm going
embarrassing
for like a day at the lake or something like that, okay, fine. But yeah, typically not. I'm more of a can or a bottle guy. Last question though, man, and then we'll wrap this up. You spoke a little bit about some different barbecues from just different quadrants of the U.S. or different locations. Talk to me real quick, real briefly, about this wrapping a steak in butter and like aging it. Like,
butter.
What is this stuff?
No, all that is okay. So when you're aging something, right, and depending on how you do it, you're essentially letting the enzymes break down the meat, right? Mm-hmm. So like the company I work for, we do dry aged steaks for places, and you'll see like 60 or 48 or whatever magic number they're doing, and if they did an ultraviolet lights or this or that. When you do it with butter, you're essentially depleting it of oxygen hitting the outside of the meat because the oxygen doesn't really travel through the fats. So I don't know if you've ever had a dish called like confit, like duck confit, or
I've heard of it. I've never had it.
Okay, so you essentially like cook, you cook down, like you render down the duck fat, right? And then you cook like the leg or whatever, and then you preserve it in the fat in the fridge, and you let it like sit. That's all you're doing, except you're not cooking the steak first. So you're just slathering it in butter, you're hanging it, and then you're letting it age, and then you cut off all the exterior, and then you cook it. And so you're doing the same thing as regular dry age or anything. You've covered it, so you're not having to. And I believe this. I've never done this myself, but I believe when you cut off all that butter, you don't have to cut off as much of the exterior of the steak. Because like if you took a steak,
you don't have to trim it as much, right?
You don't have to trim it as much because I don't know if have you ever seen a dry aged steak before it's cooked?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you know how it's like all that bark on it and it looks like jerky, and you pretty much throw that away,
right?
Because it's unusable. But what's the oldest dry aged steak you've ever had?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I really don't.
See, I've had like I think it was like 60 or a 72 day, and it almost gets like a nutty flavor, and I enjoy it a lot. Some people just don't though, because they some people I think are the misconception is it's like we were saying earlier with smoking and grilling. The longer it is, the better it is. That's not always true. If it's done properly, it just tastes different. The meat tastes different because you're letting the meat break down itself. It sort of sounds gross when you think about it. You're letting the bacteria break down and tenderize the meat for you, and so that's what you're doing with this. You're just not exposing the exterior. You're just letting it age in the inside of this butter. Okay.
Well, fantastic. Honestly, I just saw that on a few videos, and I was curious, and you're the expert. So, Chef Jake, thank you very much for the breakdown of barbecue today. I hope our listeners definitely enjoy it. Again, we want to thank Wyatt and the Ashes for allowing us to use their track for our podcast. Be sure to check them out. I know that they're on iTunes, they're on Spotify, but they have some great tracks out there, and it's actually pretty fun to listen to them. They're doing very well. Also, we want to thank our listeners for their continued support of our podcast. Without the 2.5 of you, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom, and. Yeah, that's probably it.
Check out all our socials. Up on our page now is our link tree. And if you wouldn't mind, maybe checking out our Patreon. There's some cool stuff on there. We're always looking for help, and if you're enjoying the show, it always help us out to be able to do more. And this was fun tonight. I enjoy this. I know we get a little crazy, but sometimes we got to get a little serious and be dads too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes these shows are going to get out of control, and we've had a few of those. And this one is actually a pretty good conversation going back and forth, and And so, yeah, I definitely appreciate it. Thanks for shouting out the Patreon. We do have some cool ways to subscribe and help out our show. Also, we're streaming on all major platform services now. So whatever your preference is, if it's iTunes, if it's Google Podcasts, if it's Spotify, Pandora, Audible, Amazon, etc., we're on it. So check us out. One last thing, though, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will be doing some new ways of getting information out to our subscribers, and it might not be the same on all channels going forward. So with that, Jake, what do you got for me?
Thanks for all the dirty talk, and come back and get sanitized.